Hello. I'm going to review the slide that talks about dietary reference intakes. Um, Quick tip, this will help you with your homework for next week. So those of you that have reviewed this, um, you'll want to pull up next week's homework, and there's a worksheet here that basically is matching and asks you to determine what category um, matches with the dietary reference intake. So this will be helpful for you for completing um, week 2, one of the worksheets. So dietary reference intakes, I like to think of this term, the DRIs, as sort of this umbrella term that encompasses all of these other terms that you see here, the EAR, the RDA, the AI, and the UL. Okay, so when I say dietary reference intakes, that basically means these things here. Okay. It does seem like a lot of alphabet soup, so I like to really try and break this down as easily as possible. Okay, so the DRI, the first one that we're going to talk about, is the estimated average requirement. And what I want you to think about and remember with the estimated average requirement is the word group. This is a nutrition benchmark for groups. So, what nutrient is needed to meet, or it's meeting 50% of the needs to prevent a deficiency. The estimated average requirement is used most often in government type programs like military bases, prison systems. So it's for figuring out the nutrient needs and to prevent deficiency for groups. So again, remember that word groups when you're thinking of the estimated average requirement. Now, the RDA, the recommended dietary allowance, this is recommended for healthy individuals based on research for individuals. So this is important. The RDA, this is important because this means that we have the scientific information to back up these recommendations for the healthy population. So for instance, we have the RDA for protein, which is 0.8 grams per kilogram for a healthy individual. As we'll learn later in the semester, someone with kidney disease is not considered a healthy individual, so their needs would be either higher or lower than that RDA of 0.8 grams per kilogram. But the RDA is based on enough scientific evidence to show that indeed this group of people or this age group or female versus male, pregnancy versus lactation, the science is there to back up that indeed this is how much they need from a specific nutrient group. Now I'm going to contrast that with the adequate intake. Adequate intake is almost the same as the RDA. The only exception is there isn't as much science or scientific evidence to back this recommendation up. So, in layman's terms, I like to say it's a scientist's best guess. So, for instance, there are a lot of adequate intakes for babies because there isn't a lot of research on deficiency in babies. So, adequate intake for choline for babies would be X amount of choline per day. Okay, it's scientists' best guess, but there just isn't enough evidence to support turning it into an RDA. I hope that makes sense. And then finally, we have the tolerable upper intake level, or the UL. And the UL is basically the highest amount that you can take before seeing toxic side effects. Okay, the UL is difficult to get past when we're just talking about food. It's hard to OD on certain vitamins and minerals when we're just looking at food intake. But as you can imagine, we run into difficulties with UL when people start taking supplements of specific nutrients far above the RDA, the recommended dietary allowance. I hope that clears up the DRIs.